Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed will not be joining us for this episode. They're going to the pumpkin patch. Apparently, today was Halloween, and I did not get the memo. But speaking of, the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. We are joined by very special guests, and this episode is called Brotherly Love, and so we thought we'd bring in somebody, a brotherly love figure, Mike Callow. How are you doing on this beautiful Thursday evening, sir?
I'm good, man. How are you guys doing?
I cannot complain. It's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. But there is a lot to be said about the football team. Everyone is complaining and going crazy. The biggest news from today, Callow, though, was that pictures from practice, like John Keim talked about it, Larson was snapping to Sam Howell. What is the possibility of that? We can go back. Larson is a friend of this show. He's been on this show multiple times. He's in our fantasy football league. He's been 6-1-1 as the starter going back to last season or the season before that, but he has been off injured at times. Do you think that is a big possibility and a good move?
Possibility, absolutely, right? This offensive line has been nothing short of abysmal for the entire season, right? I mean, this coaching staff tends to wait until it's almost too late to make changes like this, and so
True.
I'm welcoming it. Nick Gates has been I think by all definition, not the worst part of the line, but a mixed bag to say the least. I like that he's a nasty dude, that he essentially will get into other dudes' faces and mess some guys up, but it's been a mixed bag. And if you're going to make a change, make one. And is it better? I'm not really sure, because I really don't know with this whole entire unit who has honestly stood out. And especially if you're going to make a change at center, the left guard position seems to, is going to have a change this weekend as well. So to make two changes, essentially, I'm not sure. But you know what? If it hasn't been working with this current five, why not go for full wholesale changes? I kind of think that any change would be welcome for me.
Yeah, and Mike, in my personal opinion, if this isn't based on injury and is performance based, wouldn't the smartest avenue to go down if Sadiq Charles can't go is to slide Nick Gates at left guard?
That's what I would have thought, but, they probably want to get a look at Chris Paul because he honestly was really good in the run game. I don't know about the pass game. I think we all kind of know that's a mixed bag, but maybe Rivera, this is kind of my theory talking out with Bram today earlier on our show, was maybe Rivera is going to lay the hammer down a little bit and say, EB, run the ball, put Chris Paul in there. Let's start using B-Rob a little bit more. And maybe that's part of the plan. So that's kind of in the back of my mind as well. Maybe Rivera is the one to say, we're going to go run centric this week, because honestly, let's be real, guys, that's what's worked against the Eagles. So if you want any shot to win, maybe they go that route.
Which is crazy to say, because right now the Eagles are first in rushing yards allowed on defense.
That's
yeah,
crazy.
to your point, I was going to be on a point I was going to say. I mean, that was kind of the game plan last time they played them a couple weeks ago. A lot bit more balanced offense, hand it off to B-Rob and see what he can do, and then let the offensive line push forward. But yeah, like I said, we'll see. But in other news with the Washington franchise, Montez Sweat and Chase Young are obviously coming up in trade talks, and I don't think there's been any offers that have been on the table that have been reported for Chase Young, but there's one on the table for Montez Sweat. If they drop to the Eagles, if they lose to the potentially, yeah. If they lose to the Eagles, they drop to 3-5. Would you, as not even just as Ron or the Martys, would you as Josh Harris put the word out that hey, let's become sellers and set it up for the next regime? Because I preference that because I just tweeted this out earlier. Rivera's kind of been quoted as essentially saying, hey, if I get fired, then, I want to have it set up nicely for the next guy. And, I want to get my credit for that, whatever. Send me my ring if they win a Super Bowl. But so that would be, in my opinion, setting it up nicely for the next guy would be acquiring more assets for that next said regime. So what is your opinion on Montez Sweat or anybody getting traded if they end up losing this weekend?
So if they lose this weekend, which I think we all know is a really realistic possibility, just the way this team is going and the way the Eagles are going, It's a little bit. I've talked about it in the offseason how this roster is a little bit of a powder keg waiting to happen. There are so many free agents, and you just mentioned Sweat and Young, but I also look at Curl, Logan Thomas, a couple of the other pieces. Antonio Gibson comes to mind. That when this happens in the NFL and you kind of fall out of contention, agents call their players and go, the season's going sideways. You need to put up some stats to, get that money on the other side of free agency. So I think this is the number one thing I'm worried about, is the season going really sideways if they lose on Sunday. If they lose badly on Sunday, I think is really what I would say. So when it comes, though, to their two biggest names, Sweat and Young, I feel like you need to trade one of them. Like, let's be real here. They're not winning a Super Bowl this year with this roster and the way that they're playing. It becomes asset management. And if you want to trade Sweat, I'd be fine with it. If you want to trade Young, I'd be fine with it, because you can franchise the other one if you don't have a deal by the end of this season. I've also been a proponent, I talked about it today again on ESPN 630, that if they have good offers for both, I would be willing to listen to that. This whole entire defensive line approach has not worked. Let's be real here. We put our expectations and all the eggs in that basket every single year, and it honestly just hasn't worked out, whether it be health, whether it be inconsistency. The other part of all of this, too, is do you feel comfortable paying Chase Young or Montez Sweat in a long-term deal? I personally don't. Chase is injury prone. He's been really effective this year, but I'm not comfortable giving him a long-term deal. Sweat, does he warrant you giving him a big deal? I don't really think so, but I also don't know the number, so I won't judge on that. So honestly, yes, I think they need to trade at least bare minimum one of them. And if you're going to get enough offer for both, I say honestly pull the trigger, because I think we all know with a fresh slate coming in next year, you're going to need as many draft picks as you can, whether that's to trade up or just add some young players to this roster.
I agree. Now, Mike, looking ahead to the Philly matchup this weekend, where there will be no brotherly love in it, the Philadelphia Eagles offense, they're ranked 4th in rushing yards. They're ranked 9th in passing yards. They're 2nd in third down percentage, and they're 4th in points per game. That being said, what is the best way for this defense to try to limit the point total in the Eagles offense as much as possible?
That's a loaded question, but let's start with the basis. I think they need to seriously kind of go back to that bend, don't break. You can give up yards, but do not let them score. Let's look at the last game that they played. They stopped them a few times in the red zone. It gave them a chance. If they took them to overtime, I think that's all we can ask for at this point with this defense. They don't have an answer for A.J. Brown. So I hope you're doubling him every play. I mean, if you get beat by one of their other wide receivers, fine. But we saw what happened when you let Forbes on Brown. It is essentially look at it from a month ago. Essentially, Forbes went to starter to playing 5 snaps. So it almost like ruined your defense how badly he burned you. Worry about A.J. Brown. Hopefully the defensive line can kind of clean things up. But bend, don't break is my motto this weekend for this defense. If you just keep it close enough, I think that's all we can ask for when it comes to playing this offense. Jalen Hurts, by the way, though, is turning the ball over like crazy. He already has more turnovers this year than he did all of last year. And granted, last year was a great year. Sometimes this happens, right? But if you get a little bit of pressure, you double A.J. Brown, maybe you can get a turnover or two, maybe you flip the game at FedEx Field on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree with that. And kind of the flip side of that question, on the offensive side of the ball, we saw what the game plan was a couple of weeks ago up in Philly, where we usually play them tough and come out with a W here and there, and it's usually vice versa. They usually come down here and just beat us black and blue, ended up winning the game. But what would be the game plan? What would they need to do on offense this week to kind of stifle that tough Philly defense and possibly come out with a W?
I feel like after the 3 games after the Eagles game, who did we play after? We were playing the Bills, right? Correct? If I'm
yes.
No. It was the Bears. It was the Bears, the Falcons, and the Giants last
You're right,
week, right?
That was the overtime game in the short week against the Bears. You're right.
Yeah. And so I look at these past 3 games since we played them, and I'm sure you guys have talked about it, but it's like a broken record talking about Eric Bieniemy's offense. They don't run the ball often. He goes right into the pass game right away, and it makes them one-dimensional, and it's getting Sam killed on all of these games. So the key to this one is you've got to run the ball early, and you've got to kind of stick with it. Even if the drives aren't working out, you need to try to tire out that defensive line, get them bored, honestly, because I think this is what happens too in the league. Teams go to quick passes and run the ball to make those defensive tackles and those defensive ends that they get bored in the second half. And honestly, they don't bring it as hard. So run the ball in the first half. And then hopefully that sets you up, for some play action and some deep passes if the offensive line can hold up. Because if they are going to bench Gates and they are going to play Chris Paul at guard, they should have a run heavy type offensive line. So honestly, it's run the ball for me and try to stick with it. Don't default into the pass again.
With you. Now, Mike, to wrap this up, I only have a couple more questions for you, but we talked about the offensive line and the changes, possibly Tyler Larson and Nick Gates and Chris Paul with the Sadiq Charles. But the one name is Cornelius Lucas, who played really well against the Atlanta Falcons. Have you heard anything about him and possibly being implemented at any point?
I haven't, honestly, okay. And I've actually asked Bram about this of why don't they do a little more power? I mean, I'm not saying they have an amazing offensive line, but if you have a couple linemen that are performing that you can put in a pinch, I figure why not? I have not heard anything definitively, but you've got to think here, this staff is going to get desperate. So I'm hoping we see at least a little bit of a wrinkle with this offense and that maybe they try a couple things that are a little bit different. Because let's be honest, whether you like Bieniemy or not, or you disagree with what he's done with the game plan, he didn't get here by doing nothing. So right. You got to think he's got something in the tank, something, in his back pocket that might, help them try to get the offense going a little bit more.
And then right before the game, obviously this weekend, can you give us the latest on the injuries, if you could?
The only ones I know about are the ones you already said, the offensive line. And then I know Barton probably isn't going to play. I already saw some talk today that I think it's Khalil Hudson they're going to give the helmet to call the defense. So
I heard David Mayo.
Oh, was it Mayo? Okay, so I might have gotten my linebackers confused there. So
let me ask you about that, because last year, Mike, Cam Curl wore the green dot, and Jamin Davis did at the end of the year, but they're going to David Mayo. What does that kind of say about with Jamin and their opinion on him?
I mean, my guess is they're probably just trying to go with a steadier hand. I don't really know on this one. Let's be honest here, too. When it comes to our team's linebackers, it's pick your poison. Like, I'm not really gravitating towards one over the other by, at this time. But yeah, that was the only other thing I had heard about. I'm with you, by the way. Like, Cam Curl still is the heart of this defense a lot of the time. And so I was a little shocked to hear that wasn't going to be the case. But once again, if they just need someone calling plays, maybe he does it better than everyone else.
Yeah, in year 3, still not having a grasp on the defense enough, the same defense to be able to. That's kind of crazy, Mike. Next question I have for you. Washington, they just got their first initial batch of hirings. Not batch, but they had hired Senior VP of Football Strategy and Analytics, Eugene Shen, who did some work with the Jaguars. I think did some work with some other teams. I think the Ravens, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yep.
Talk about that. Is that a great step for this football team?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because my guess here is they probably don't have an analytics department or one that's, heavily involved with things. Let's be honest here. Ron Rivera, I think everyone needs to remember, Ron Rivera took this job and got the job and only would take it if Dan Snyder gave him full control over everything, right? Mm-hmm. So my guess here is Ron probably wasn't heavy in the analytics department. And in fact, I remember his first year here, he kind of said he didn't deal with analytics quite a bit. So my guess here is this was going to be a kind of non-negotiable for the new ownership of this is going to be the first thing we bring in because it doesn't exist right now. I love it. He was with the Ravens for 5 years, I think, and the Ravens were one of the first teams that were very, very heavy into analytics. So, yeah, I think this is a great hire. It's modernizing the franchise, which honestly, we've seen things around the stadium, including like traffic, stuff like that, that's gotten way better literally overnight with this ownership group. Right now, I trust pretty much anything that they do. And honestly, it's probably overdue that they get someone in this department. And honestly, we all know this too. They need every little bit of help that they can get. So if he's spitting some sheets over to Rivera saying you need to do X, Y, and Z, I'm sure Rivera's going to listen to him.
My man, appreciate it, Mike. Last question I have for you. Well, it's not really a question, but I know you're a big hat collector, and I'm a big fan of hats. I saw Santana Moss was wearing like the white version of my hat. It freaked me out on the command center today. I was like, where did you get that, sir? Because it's hard to get this thing. So do you have a hat of the week for us, sir? I'm really interested to see this.
So I'll go honorable mention here. This is one of my favorites. This is the like the old Caps and Wizards colorway with the Nats. But I got to shout out my guys over at Hat Club. They had a pop-up shop a couple weeks ago, and this is one of my favorites right now. Is the
Ooh, I like
script
that.
Washington
Nice.
kind of metallic-y colors. It's not really coming up as well as I want it to.
Okay.
All-Star Game patch, super clean. I'm loving this logo. People have been using it more and more. So this is
Snapback?
definitely no, all fit. I go all fitteds, man.
Okay.
I know it's by preference, but this one's fitted, and that's my hat of the week right now. I haven't even worn it yet, so definitely gonna get it into this weekend.
Definitely one of those hats that you could wear with a lot of different color combos and with a lot of different things. I can see why you like that one, Mike. I can't thank you for joining us. I know you have a lot to do and everything you do, but before we get out of here, would you like to plug your social media handle and your show, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet and would like to, sir?
Absolutely. You can get at me at Mike_Callow, CALLOW. Same thing on Twitter and on Instagram. But of course, you can listen to me with Bram Weinstein, who is, of course, the voice of the team on ESPN 630. If you're out of town, we have an app. You can listen on the website. And it's good you're having me on a Thursday because I plug this every single time. Friday is our best show. Bram talks with people in the organization. He gives you a really good feel of what is coming on Sunday in terms of what to expect, sometimes a little game plan. He also talks with Rivera. So always check out our Friday shows. And if you can't listen live, podcast always available as well.
There you go, everybody. It's payday, and you get to hear Bram and Mike be able to give you some good tidbits. Mike, can't thank you enough, brother. Have a great weekend. Hopefully we can pull out this W.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me.
Appreciate it, man. Have a good
Appreciate
weekend.
you as always, Mike. All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Mike Callow. Look, the reason why I said brotherly love with Mike Callow is because, like, the first time he came on here, dude, it was like there was not that much of a transition. The dude just fit right in with us.
Yeah, exactly.
And almost like us, Hall and I almost wearing the same sort of shirts here. We didn't even coordinate this.
You know, it's funny. Whenever he came on, I was like looking around. I was like, man, there's a lot of W's in like these screens right now. Like, there's W's in my corner, your shirt, your hat, your jacket, his hat. It's like, man,
all I see is dubs. That's what I said in the Discord.
It's a sign. We're gonna get this dub this weekend.
Yeah, I hope so, man. Ooh, it's been a struggle. It really, really has. But before we get into fan questions and everything of the sort, and joined by our next guest here who is very familiar with us, and I call him the Bridge if you are familiar with me or any of us, you know who I'm referring to. But before we get into him and in the fan questions, let's get some keys. And I don't want just the easy, just the grand scheme keys to the game this weekend for Washington to be able to get a win against the Eagles, because it's a very tough matchup, man. Washington defensively, they're 29th in points per game. They're 9th in red zone percentage. Like, Callow earlier said, for them, the big issue is going back to getting to the bend but don't break defense. They've done a pretty good job at this point, and like the stats back that up. They're 15th in third down percentage, 22nd in rushing yards, 28th in passing yards, but they are 7th in sacks, averaging over 3 sacks per game. So, Hall, what are some keys for Washington in this game?
Yeah, last week against the Giants, I said that the O-line was going to have to be pretty much on their P's and Q's because of Wink Martindale and the blitz scheme and how he was going to bring the pressures, and we saw how that ended and the result of that. So this week I'm going to say my number one key is, and it has to do with the running game, it has to do with Brian Robinson or Chris Rodriguez or even Antonio Gibson, whoever, or even Sam Howell if you want to use a couple of read options or like design QB runs in there. But I would say that on first and second down, if you're going to run the ball, or at any point in the game when you're going to run the ball on early downs, or if they want to use the quick game or the screen game or stuff like that, I think that they're going to have to stay ahead of the chains. They're going to have to put themselves in second and manageable, third and shorts, third and manageables, kind of stay ahead of the chains and just kind of keep and convert third downs, obviously, because keep Philly's defense on the field. Obviously, they're pretty good this year, but they're not playing up to the level that they were last year. Obviously, we put up 30-something points on them last time, so they can be had. You've seen teams throw the ball on them and be able to run the ball a little bit on them. So I think that staying ahead of the chains, putting themselves in second and short, second and manageable, third and shorts, and be able to run the ball a little bit, which will help Sam Howell as well because you'll open up the play action game. So my key this week is Brian Robinson, Chris Rodriguez, Antonio Gibson, whoever it may be. You got to stay ahead of the chains, and they got to average I'll say at least 4.5 yards a carry, somewhere around that range to kind of stifle this Philly defense.
That's really good, and it's going to be hard to do, though. I think I really
Yeah.
like your keys because obviously Philly's defense number one against the rushing yards so far this season. They are 14th in points per game defensively. They're 23rd in red zone conversion percentage. So to your point, you got to be able to score points here, right? And that's what Philly can do. They're 21st on third down percentage, and I think that's a lot has to go in with that. I think the third down percentage for our offense is the biggest key to this game because right now we're 31st in the league, averaging 29% per game in a conversion percentage on third
Horrible.
down. Absolutely dreadful. And going against Philly, the one way that they've been able to be successful against them is by moving the chains, is by continuing to eat up that clock, not allowing Jalen Hurts multiple opportunities because you can't do what you did against the Giants where you go back and forth. You're both punting back and forth. That's not going to happen against Philly. Philly's too talented for that. They're going to score. And so you have to be able to bleed out these drives, the 10 to 12 plays, to take out 6 to 7 minutes at a time. And that's when you're at a really good position because
Got to
then you're
finish those
forcing,
drives too.
yeah, and you're forcing Jalen. You're absolutely right. You're forcing Jalen to have to force his way back into that game. And that's where he can kind of make mistakes for me. So I think the third down is crucial. And secondly, is penalties. The penalties were atrocious last week and
Yeah.
was for the big reason why they got put back into on third down so much and put in those situations. And I think penalties and third down, that's going to be the big issue for this team this weekend. I honestly, I'm not going to say I have a weird feeling about it because every time I say that we lose. But it's just, I feel like these are sort of those kind of situations. But that being said, along those lines, the Colonel's question for us all, he said, "Hey guys, isn't it that time of the year where we win an unlikely game over a Super Bowl contender and start a 5-game winning streak? Would this be the right time to do it?" He said, obviously referring to the win over the Steelers 2 years ago when they were undefeated and last year against the undefeated Eagles.
Yeah, that's what everyone's been saying. I mean, if you look at the track record of since Rivera's got here, they've always kind of went on that little 3 to 4 or 5 game run, whatever it may be. It usually comes around week 6, 7, and that little stretch around there in the middle of the season. And yeah, I mean, it's happened before, like you said, with the Steelers a couple years ago, Philly last year or 2 years ago. Was
The
it 2 years? Yeah, 2 years
Buccaneers, the
ago.
Buccaneers we beat.
Exactly. So I mean, there's definitely it's definitely one of those games where it's a division game, so they always play each other tough. And so it's definitely possible. I know we're going to predictions, so I'll say my predictions, what I'm going to say at the end. But yeah, I think that it's definitely possible, and it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. But yeah, we'll see what happens on Sunday.
Yeah, look, this being a divisional game, currently at the moment, Washington is 0-2 in the NFC East. Or, no, yeah, 0-2,
Need
right?
a win desperately. Yeah,
And
desperately need a win.
they're 1-2 at home. And with this new ownership, them trying to appease them, it's not going to be smart to fall to 1-3 at home. It's not going to look good to fall 0-3 inside the division against your opponents. You have to be able to come up with a fight here. So yeah, this would be a fantastic time to be able to rip away a streak or two. I'm sure there's some people out there that would actually hate to hear that because they
Hmm.
want a change to happen, which is asinine to me. Because regardless, you're playing with house money here, but I think this is the right time to do it. I think they have this is the sort of kind of story. If every season was a book for Washington, this chapter seems to come up every single version that comes out,
Hmm.
you know? And this
Yeah.
is the good start to do that. And then it's just one of those games where you could see it happening. And Washington, they're not a bad team. It's just when they play as a team, they're not a bad team. When they play as individuals, they are a bad team because they're all individuals at that point, if that makes any sense. I'm not sure if it does, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, let's move on to the Discord chat server to get some of our fan questions that were submitted. This one by Tim Towner. It's a fun one, Hall. He said, "My wife just left on a beach trip and I'm hungry, so I'm thinking fast food. What is your go to stop in times such as these?"
Ooh, it's a good one. So I live like literally 3 minutes around the corner from like McDonald's, Wendy's. What else is over there? It's like a Tortacos. It's like a taco Spanish place. Obviously Chipotle's up there.
I
So I
did.
got a couple.
I thought it was seafood.
So I got a couple options, but I'm gonna say honestly, my go-to is got to go to Wendy's. I love their fries. I always get the more times than not, more than likely, the spicy chicken sandwich, the number 6 with no tomatoes. And yeah, that's my sandwich. That's usually my go-to, and I love me some Wendy's.
Tim, Do me a favor, man. I know you said fast food, but I'm copping out here. I'm not doing fast food. Do yourself a favor, Tim. Do yourself a favor. What I need you to do is I need you to get your keys, grab your wallet, get a good nice shirt on. I need you to head on out, go find your nearest Texas Roadhouse. I want you to pull up to the bar, order yourself a beer, drink, water, Coke, whatever the heck you like, and just enjoy Thursday Night Football. Enjoy those rolls that they put in front of you, and just get a steak and enjoy the night and being able to watch football and have a great steak.
I just went to Texas Roadhouse a couple Mondays ago after the podcast. Bruh. Best steak ever, bro. I'm trying to tell you. I love Texas Roadhouse.
It's America under a roof. I'm trying to tell
that place.
Ah, man, I wish I could have one of those like unlimited
I
gift
still got a
cards
gift card. Me and Courtney still got a gift card. We got like $55, $60 on it. I'm like, we're due for another trip to the Roadhouse in a couple weeks.
It's infectious. I've tried to tell everybody I'm like a spokesman for them at this point. I don't even get paid for it. Now thanks, Tim. This next question is from Tim in the Discord. He said he just heard John Keim and Sam Fortier talking about the possible offensive line changes. Charles with a calf injury will most likely not play, and Gates may be benched as well. Who would you run out in place of those two?
Yeah, obviously friend of the show. I'm gonna go with my guy Tyler Larson. Even though I know people want to see the 3rd round draft pick, but it seems that they're stuck on kind of putting him at guard and trying him at guard before they probably inevitably, or the next regime inevitably probably moves him to center, which is his natural position, which he played in more times than not. He played that position in college down in Arkansas. But yeah, I would put Tyler Larson in, and at guard, honestly, I'd probably put Strongberg, but I know they like Chris Paul and like what he can do in the run game. But you drafted Strongberg in the 3rd round, and I feel like it's one of the I forget what the lineman's award is in the SEC, but he got the top lineman award in the SEC. So obviously he has a little bit of pedigree behind him. You took him in the 3rd round. I'd say throw him in there and see what he has. And obviously you can always go to Chris Paul if you need to. But I want to see – and then you've already taken a little bit of hits as far as the draft picks go, as far as Emmanuel Forbes, kind of you benched him already. Quan Martin's been in and out of the lineup, but he's been flashing here and there. You haven't really played Strongberg. Daniels is on an IR. KJ Henry's never dresses. So your draft class is looking kind of iffy right now. For public sake, it would be smart to play Stromberg. And if he flourishes, you look better. If he fails,
politician, look at you.
Look and say, hey, I'll learn from the best. And then if you fail, you can always go back to Chris Paul because you know what he offers for this line and for this team.
Number one, I would bring in Larson as center. I would bring him in immediately to be able to do that. No disrespect to Nick Gates. We don't know the big issues, but I do feel like
immediately.
I do feel like the line changes are obviously the calls pre-snap are a big issue that are happening. I heard a scout say that a guard is necessary. They need to be able to have power. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I don't know shit. But that would make sense to slide Nick Gates over because you're going against Jalen Carter. You're going against Jordan Davis, two very, very good defensive tackles. I think I saw a stat earlier. I forget which Twitter it was, which account did it, but he said Jalen Carter has a pass rush win rate of a 22%, which is highest of all defensive tackles. So I concern and I struggle with thinking of putting Stromberg in that situation. And I think you want to go with the vet who has some bulkiness to him, who is able to be able to stand up with those big dudes. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I would much rather go down.
I forget if they played each other while they were in the SEC together, but he might have already faced those guys on the line. So you never know.
And I don't know how those games played out, Arkansas versus Georgia, but I'm sure it wasn't all that great. You know what I'm saying?
That's because the overall talent disparity.
But all I'm saying is that it's just for this game in particular, I think there would be but it's trial by fire. They've done this with Sam Howell. Like, they've thrown him in there against the Cowboys, right?
That's my point, yeah.
Yeah, and so it would make sense for them to – because they have done it in the past, to your point. Now we are joined by our guest / co-host, I'm going to say, just because he's a brother of the pod, brother of us. We love him, our guy, Mr. Andy Burrows. I don't know which podcast to say you're a part of. I'm going to say Hitting the Turnbuckle. I'm going to say the Bunker Podcast. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. Good evening. How are you, boys? Good to see you, man. It's been a while.
Yes, sir.
It has been a while. And I know it's been a rough week on Twitter for all of us. I've been trying to keep up the good, positive vibes. Andy, it's been hard. But how are you feeling today after such a week of just the realization of everything?
I've simmered down a lot after on Sunday. The problem with Twitter, we all get way too emotional on a Sunday and on a Monday. My feelings, the views I had haven't changed too much on like what I thought about the team and the coaches. But you're always optimistic as we're coming into a divisional game, and me being me probably thinks that we're going to win. And I'm going to try not to put. I stupidly put out on Twitter last Sunday morning, "There's no way we're losing this game." And my God,
trust me, you're not the only one. You're one of many that
I
had
got
so much pie in their face. Like, how
I
did
think
this even
someone
happen?
last quote tweeted me like yesterday for that tweet, and yeah, I got absolutely killed for that tweet, but no, I'm okay, man. I mean, it's a new week. Let's hope we can just put in a better performance than we did last Sunday.
Yeah, is that why you're wearing the glasses to make you look all classy? And
Dude, you know what? I'm getting old now because I do so many. Podcasts. My eyes are really with the screen. I'm an old man now. It's just I'm like a hot cocoa before bed and everything.
I'm gonna start calling you Austin Powers because it looks like just
man.
like the glasses too, man. Absolutely love it. Andy, we had a question submitted on the Discord from our guy Tim Towner. He said Keim and Sam Fortier were talking about the changes in the offensive line. If you had to swap out Nick Gates and Sadiq Charles, which two offensive linemen would you put in their place?
Oh, Jesus, that's a good question, man. I mean, I read something today that what's going on with our O-line today? Different people snapping the ball and everything's going. I read something. I haven't seen loads of Washington news today, so
yeah, Larson. What the theme right now? The rumor is that Larson might be starting on Sunday, and they don't know what's going on with left guard yet, though.
Yeah, I mean, I've got no issues with Larson starting. I mean, let's be honest, the O-line, no matter who you put in, it's been a subject of talk throughout Washington for God knows how long now. So it was, in my opinion, I'm so disjointed with our offensive line right now. I mean, I know we give them a lot of BS and stuff like that what's going on in Washington, but you know, a lot of people are putting pressure on Sam Howell right now. But if you can't protect that dude, then that kid's always gonna struggle. So I don't think it matters who the hell you bring in right now. That line is so bad that I listened. What did I listen to yesterday? I think I had Kevin Sheehan on, and he was saying this could be our worst line in the last 20 years that we've had in Washington, and that's saying something because we've had some bad offensive lines in Washington. I mean, geez, that's who you'd bring in. I mean, I don't think it really matters right now.
That's one of the arguments that I have learned as a fan that I had to get over after the 2013-2014 season because I was one of those guys that was saying this is one of the worst offensive lines. This is terrible. But then I started to learn a little bit, and I never forget that we had really bad sack totals at RG3. He leaves and goes to Cleveland, has similar sack totals, but then Kirk under our offense had literally a third of it. Just because of being able to get the ball out of his hands. And like that point, but to your point, Andy, you are right. There's an issue up front on the offensive line. There is no discrepancy about it. But I'm just saying, like, I always feel reluctant to blame the offensive line because sometimes I feel like the quarterback is not doing enough. And that's what my point was last year with Carson.
When you go back and watch film, I'll give you that. Like, we were all at week 1 and we were like screaming our heads off. Like, what? But when you watched, when I went back and when I got home back to the UK and I rewatched the game, you're like, oh, hang on a minute, that's maybe on Sam or, someone missed a coverage or something happened. So it's not 100% on them. I'm going to say it's a strong 80% because it's literally, it's literally
a strong 80.
It's a strong 80, man. You can't, the thing is, I've been trying to be like the most optimistic fan ever.
Gotcha.
But there's sometimes you just can't defend the undefensible because what they're putting this kid through this season is inexcusable and he's got his issues. So when you're a young quarterback, and I don't want to use the term rookie anymore because he's not, but when you're still trying to learn on the fly like he is, and maybe he is struggling to get the ball out a lot quicker, or maybe he is struggling to go through his progressions, all you ask is that you can protect the young fella. That's all you ask. And at the minute, we can't even do that. And you've only look at the New York Giants got to us. The New York Giants got to us how many times? I mean, don't get me wrong. We know that's how they play. They're a blitzing team. And, we could have schemed, yada, yada, yada. I've heard it. But we've just got to help this young man out. You boys know my feelings on this O-line. But when you're getting absolutely crushed like Sam is, just give him an extra 2 seconds if we can. Because if he's struggling to go through them reads and everything, trying to help him, man, but we just can't even do that at the minute. When you're getting, what is it? How many sacks did he take last Sunday? I lost count in the end.
5, I think it was.
5 sacks against the New. Come on, man.
Oh no, 6. I think it was 6. No, you're right, Andy. Like especially on those stunts, like Sadiq Charles and stuff like that. Like if they send more than you, okay, it makes sense that were to happen. But if you have one more extra guy, those sort of things should not be happening. And then the Nick Gates, like the first play of the game where he gets a sack on Howell, just immediately and Dexter Lawrence just rips across his face, and immediately too, like that's not on Sam. Like you have to do better there, to your point. But just in the whole microcosm of everything, I understand the argument.
Yeah, I think because everything that's going on in Washington right now, we're overflating everything, and everything's getting like blown out of proportion because we are so bad right now, and we're grasping on all these little things that maybe we are doing good, but it's being outweighed by everything that we're doing wrong right now. You go back and look at all the training camp talk and all the preseason talk. We weren't talking about any of this. This has hit us like an absolute freight train this season because let's be honest, none of us really saw it coming. We didn't think we'd be this bad. I didn't think Sam Howell would be getting sacked this much. And a lot of it is on him. Yeah. A lot of it is on him, and he's still learning on the fly. I mean, I've heard some ludicrous things over the last couple of days. He's gonna get benched, and he's not gonna make the second quarter of this weekend's game against the Eagles. If we can't protect him this weekend against and we all know what they're doing. They're an elite side right now. Geez, if we can't give Sam Howell, if we give him the same protection we gave him last weekend, we could be 30 down by halftime.
No, you're right, Andy, because right now the Eagles' defense, they're 5th in the league on with sacks, averaging a little bit less than 3.5 per game.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right about it, man. It's a concern, especially for me, and I get that. I'm all there with you. But now this next question, Hall, did you have something to say? I saw you put your finger up.
Nah, it's all good. It's all good.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right. Now this next question from Deluxe, Hall. In seasons past, there has been a play that sparks the team. What player makes that play for this team? I would say this Sunday against the Eagles, not just in this season.
This Sunday, who makes that play? I want it to be Jahan Dotson so bad, but I just keep waiting for it and waiting for it and waiting for it, and it just hasn't happened yet. But I will say that it's going to have to be someone on the defensive side of the ball flipping the field for the offense, because that seems to be when they get their best results, when they have a short field or you have to go already start good field position. So I will say it will be, amidst all the trade rumors, Montez Sweat makes a sack fumble and causes a turnover, sack fumble, boosts his trade value up just a little bit more, makes those teams want to be like, you know what, we got to pull the trigger for this guy. But yeah, I'll say Montez Sweat makes a sack fumble and gets the turnover for the offense.
I like that one. I'll say it's Tress Way. And I want to see some trickery this weekend. Tress Way's an athlete. Let's get a fake field goal, a fake punt. Let's throw a touchdown out of it. You know what I'm saying? Let's actually do something aggressive here. And I would love to see that. But realistically speaking, there's one player that's going to make and spark the change. I think it might be a cop-out or an easy answer for other people. I'll say Jamison Crowder. I think the special teams aspect is going to be huge this weekend. Hall, you talked about it. When you're struggling to score points, how many you were bitching about Dax Milne so many times, right? You need that special teams play to kind of offset the lack of production from your offense.
It's a good one.
That would really help.
Jamison Crowder has been that little bit of a spark plug here and there, so that's a good one.
What do you think, Andy?
You need someone like he's got a lot of stick from all of us. Someone like a Jamin Davis to step up and just disparage of all the hate that's been gone on to the linebacker core. I've been giving it as much as someone like him or Emmanuel Forbes. Imagine if he come back in and said, "Hey, look, I'm your first overall pick. I'm not as bad as you lot make me out to be." Someone like that could.
Andy, you imagine if he got a pick 6 after what he did last game against AJ Brown?
Yeah. Honestly, dude, something like that. It's just something like that you need to maybe ignite this fan base and ignite this defense, because offensively, defensively, we're getting it from all angles right now. And it's very easy for these players to come out in locker rooms and go, "We need to stand up. We need to do this. This is for my brother." Go and do it. Do you know what I mean? Someone like a Jamin or an Emmanuel Forbes, because you always hear of Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, Chase Young always putting his team on their back. Maybe one of these guys could say, "Hey, look, you know what I mean? I'm going to do this." Like, they've come under so much criticism in the last, 4 or 5 days, especially since the weekend. It might take someone like him, all season. Someone like an Emmanuel Forbes who got benched for an entire game. What did you see the field for? One play last weekend?
Five
plays in total. So someone like him or a Jamin Davis just to make a tackle, get a pick, something to ignite this team, because you're going to need that. You're going to need both sides of the ball to potentially score points this weekend. Yeah. Because, if you don't, I don't think we can rely on our offense to completely win this game on their own. If we have any hope of winning this game, defensively, we need to get to that ball. We even need a pick. We need something to spark for us this weekend.
Yeah, and Benjamin St. Juste I know he gave up those two big plays last week to Hyatt, but he has been playing really well as of late, really being able to attack the football. He's going to need a big game this weekend going against A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, because we've been needing that consistency in the back end, and we saw it last time. They're going to be pressing that issue. Now, Andy, the next question is from our guy, Chris Comerton in the Discord. His question is, if Sweat and Young's going rate is only $10 to $12 million per year, would you try to re-sign Cam, Young, and Sweat? I think we could do it if we sign Cam in one of those DNs this year and tag the other DN, preferably Young, to see if he continues to improve. That way it would offset the contracts, but signing one to a lesser length of contract would also offset them, so we don't have the same dilemma of re-signing all three later.
Not the longest question in the world.
Yes. He's bored.
Do you know what? I've flipped on this so much. We spoke about it on the bunker a couple of weeks ago. We were like, no, Sweat's getting the bag, Chase. Now I'm kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I personally think there's no smoke without fire. And the brief little bits I've seen today, I think Montez is out the door. I don't know if you guys saw his interview in the locker room about an hour ago. I briefly caught that. I think he knows he might be. Ideally, yeah, you want to keep your best players on your roster. You want to get, and let's be honest, Chase Young, Montez Sweat, elite of the elite. I've got a horrible feeling that Montez Sweat won't end this season as a Washington Commander. As much as it pains me to say that, I think he's out the door.
Then that would be unfortunate, to be perfectly honest. If their going rate is $10 to $12 million, I think they can get it done. Like a lot of people keep assuming that Chase Young and Montez Sweat are going to garner the type of contracts of a franchise tag, of the top five average of contracts for DNs. In my personal opinion, I don't think other teams are going to be offering any sort of that kind of money. To be perfect, like, have they really shown to warrant that kind of contract up until this point? Chase Young, you could probably make an argument for it because of how young he is. But then you bring up the injury history and the kind of massive implications from that injury and what had to get done to get him back here. I feel like that's hard to do. So I do think it's possible. And with Cam Curl, I think they have like 80-70 million in cap space next season. Look, that's 30 million right there. And you can even offset it to come like after next year. You can do different stuff to help you out in the long term. Everyone keeps saying it's impossible. I do think it is possible, and the lack of production is why. I think that's probably one of the main reasons, and that's why we probably won't. I didn't think that would actually see them drafted, because Hull and I have been saying all offseason, Rivera's trying to win this year. What benefit does it for him to be ordered to get future draft picks? Is it really going to garner any success for him?
Do you think this weekend will play a part in that? If you say for this, so we've got what? We've got the Eagles, and then we've got the Patriots coming up.
Yeah.
When does that mentality switch of, oh shit, we're not trying to win now this season? And how far into a season do you start thinking about the draft? I mean, the NFL is probably the only game where you start already halfway through your season thinking already for next season. You know what I mean? So there has to be something and who knows what's happening with Rivera. You know what I mean? He might just be thinking, well, I don't care. I'm not going to be here. It could be one of them situations.
Andy, I would say to that it's all based on the circumstances permitting. Like if you're in a division that has like the Bengals and the Ravens who are running away with it, does it really make sense for you to put all that much in if you're down a couple of losses, or if you lost your quarterback for the year, and that's where you put all of your investment into and you don't have much surrounding him. Are you really going to continue going, or are you probably going to make some moves? So I think it all is based on circumstances. But for here, I think it's so unique in the way of Rivera having 1 year left on his contract, Harris buying the team this year, the misses in the draft, and then everything. Because I've never really had an issue with Rivera's drafts. But this one in particular, his last one, really irked me, and it's not because of the first two picks. It's not because of Ricky Stromberg either. I really like Ricky. It's the guys that they missed up on that they could be plugging in right now and starting, and they'd be hella cheap.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to be able to get Chase or Montez for 10 to 12 million a year. Like, that's just. I mean, I wish that'd be possible, but the Montez at least. So he already has an offer on the table for a long term deal for whatever team that wants to trade for him. So that's probably at least 14 to 16 million. Like, yeah, allegedly. That's at least like at minimum 14 to 16 million probably that he's going to command a year. So I would probably say that what's going to end up probably going to happen is they're probably going to trade Montez unless they win Sunday. Then who knows what's going to happen? But even if they win, they still might trade Montez Sweat. But I think they trade Montez Sweat. I think they franchise probably Chase Young, and hopefully they get a long term deal done with Cam Curl because of the three. I'd rather give right now at least. I'd rather give Cam Curl the long term extension, the long term money because he's been the most consistent. He's been the most like the heart of the defense pretty much as far as like I said, all like the most consistent. You've seen what the defense looks like whenever he's out the lineup with the numbers, what they look like, and you see what the numbers look like when he's in the defense and in the lineup and playing and starting. So as much as I would, and honestly, I'd rather keep Montez over Chase, to be honest with you. If it was up to me and there was trade offers for Chase, I would trade Chase, keep Montez, and give Montez franchise tag or the long term because he's done it more consistently here than Chase has, and then also give Cam Curl the bag. But what's probably going to happen, like I said, is they'll trade Montez, franchise Chase, and hopefully give Cam Curl an extension.
Montez's body of work's better than Chase's because
that's why I was saying like I would keep Montez, and if they had offers for Chase, I would trade Chase. But it seems like there's no real offers on the table for Chase. Oh yeah, I know, and it's one of them things where it's like he's definitely ascending. It looks like he's on the upward trend, getting back to what he was. But at the same time, it's like, is he getting back to what he was? Yes, but is he going to stay motivated to what he was because he knows there's a payday coming? You know what I'm saying? Is he going to be one of those players that gets a payday and he's kind of like, all right, well, I got the bags. Let me just not really go back to what I was, but not keep pushing and working hard to be that dude. You know what I'm saying? That's my only thing.
Honestly, a part of me, I love Chase Young. I love Montez Sweat. I love everything they've done for this football team. But if you were going to make any move at all, if you're going to do one, I would imagine you would just do both at the same time and just start from scratch at that point. Because I think that you kind of, Mike Callow talked about earlier, saying this kind of centric approach with this D-line hasn't garnered all that much for you. And we do have good depth at where we are, and it would not be a bad idea. But I would much rather those guys on this team this year. Whatever moves you make in replenishing, whatever, do in the offseason when you need to do it. But let's just see what we can out of this unit. Let's see what they can actually play up to.
I mean, I like that, but the only problem with that is once the offseason comes, you can only franchise one and one can walk.
I know.
And you're going to get a comp pick for him, but it's towards the end of the round comp pick. You know what I'm saying? So it's like trade value diminishes, the comp pick, the third round pick, whatever it may be, is towards the back end. It gets real messy then.
Are you going to go with still the potential of Chase Young or what you know with Montez Sweat? That's the dilemma that you've got to weigh up because we've been saying it for, God knows how long. Chase Young is that good, but he's potentially that good because we haven't quite seen the defensive rookie of the year yet.
Well, the problem is
Andy, to your
there's
point,
no real offers on the table for Chase. Like there's teams calling for Montez. Teams aren't really calling for Chase. That's also the other conundrum right now where it's like you can't really pick which one you want to choose or keep because teams are only calling for one dude essentially, you know?
And Andy, to your point, probably the big question mark in regards to 99 is when he decides to play like that, like he did his rookie year. And that's probably the big reason why people are kind of reluctant to say, give all that money because are you really going to get the 100% effort the entire time? But that being said, boys, we answered a fan question. Well, the next one was Scott Hartley, who asked us, who could you see being moved by the trade deadline? Thank you, Scott, in the UK. Oi, love you, brother. But we already pretty much answered that. So let's break down this game real quick, boys. How do we think it's going to play out? Keys that they would need to be able to get a victory, Andy. Hall and I already talked about this earlier, but if you real quick before your prediction, if they were to win on Sunday, what are the keys in order to get that?
Defensively, we need to be on this game like we haven't been all season, really, in my opinion. This is one game where you're not going to get a miracle. You're not going to be 27 to 30 points down at halftime and realistically come back. And if this season's told us anything, we seem to keep digging ourselves into holes. So I think we need to I want to see B-Rob more. this Sunday. I don't think we saw enough of him last week. I don't think we ran the ball enough last week. I want to see our running game go, and I want to see it go hard. If you're struggling offensively side of the ball, give it to a ball carrier that you can trust. Move the ball more with your runners. I don't think we've done that enough. Thing is, you all know what you're going to get with the Eagles. You know what I mean? And they blitz a hell of a lot as well. And if we haven't learned any lessons from last Sunday, we're screwed, because we really need to learn lessons, and we need to learn them quick. So we need everything to click. And like I just said a moment ago, you can't be in a hole. I think I've said this every single game, or when we talk, or every single game, it's either we start okay, but it seems to get to halftime. I'm like, oh, well, we're 3 scores down already. And then we do unusual. I said it last weekend on Twitter. We're going to rally. It's what we do. It's Washington. We'll give you that tiny little bit of hope. And in one play, we'll take it away. We have to be consistent. We haven't been a consistent football team this season. Consistency will win you games.
Not once.
Literally not once. And that goes from week 1 when we were there to we haven't been consistent at all. We had that a little bit last season. And I just want to see us be consistent with everything that we do. We seem to be ill-disciplined. The penalties that we're giving away are stupid. You know what I mean? The yardage that we're giving up is ridiculous. We need discipline, consistency. Just be an all-round good football team for once, and play well for 4 quarters, because we haven't done it for ages now.
And play as one unit, as one full team, and that could really go a long way. Like, when you have a bad game, a lot of people are going to pick on you, but you should be having comfortability. You should be residing in saying all the failure falls on the team. Yeah, I'm going to take credit for it, but you can always hide behind the shield of the team unless you're trying to prove that you are above the team and you're better than the team, which sometimes does happen with people, and you would hope that would go away. What's your prediction for the game, Andy? Realistic.
Really,
MVP too.
MVP, I would love to say Jamin Davis, just to shut everyone up. I mean, I've been on him. I like the dude. I think he's a good kid. I think he's got to prove a point. I'd like to see Terry more, to be honest. We used him. What was the game before the Eagles at home? We used him briefly for like the first 7-8 plays. All I saw was Terry. We went away from that last week. My prediction, I don't want to let my heart rule my head. I think we'll lose by about 2 scores. I don't think we'll have enough. I don't know what the score will be. We only put 7 points up last week, so I've given up trying to predict what, you know what I mean? I could easily sit here and go, well, we're going to get 27 points. And they'll be like, is this English guy smoking crack or something? They'll be like, what's going on? I've just given up trying to guess. My heart says we'll win by, it'll be a thriller and we'll win by a score. My head realistically says we could lose by 2 to 3 scores, because I don't think we're playing that well right now.
I'm with you, and Jamin would be one heck of an MVP. I think that we do win 24-20, no homer vision on. Just the way that these sort of things go, kind of how they've been playing. I don't think they're at really an all-star level, but I think they kind of, like, for some reason, I'll never forget, Bill Parcells was talking, I think, to Joe Gibbs or somebody, saying, like, we, being the Giants, we always beat Washington. Washington always beats Philly. Philly always beats Dallas. And it's just the way that the division works. And you saw it last weekend against the Giants. It's just it's just nature at this point. I think that we do have that this weekend. The big thing is going to be the sacks. Right now, Washington is 7th in sacks, averaging over 3 per game. If they're able to get to Jalen, force a couple turnovers, they'll be able to really do some damage here. But I'm not going to expect it, but I do think that Washington wins 24-20 with some special teams shake. And Jamison Crowder as MVP. And I really do hope that Jahan Dotson and Terry come through for the young man and help out Sam Howell, because the kid's getting beat up on a little bit too much for my liking.
Yeah, so I know everyone wants to say, like, oh, we beat a team every year we're not supposed to beat, and we usually beat, like, a top team and blah, blah, blah. Honestly, I think that game for us this season happened a couple weeks ago, except we didn't win it because we didn't go for 2 at the end of the game and win the game. So, and I've been saying all week that –
what if we went for 2 and then didn't get it, though?
Do you remember when the Giants game when everyone was killing?
But at least you tried.
Yes,
at least you tried to win the game.
Yeah, but
at least you tried to win the game at that point.
What happened in the New York Giants last season?
Yeah, but also
he got killed.
Let's be real. Like, they were probably going to get that 2-point conversion if they would have got that.
The
momentum was already swinging. The momentum was swinging our way.
A logical Washington fan. God damn you crazy English man. Leave and drink some tea.
Nah, we would have won that game. They went for 2. They were going to get it. The momentum was swinging our way. They silenced the crowd. They had the defense in shock. Like, oh, man. But anyway, I've been saying all week that it's either going to go one of 2 ways. We're either going to win the game like a squeaker, like by a late field goal or a late touchdown to go up by a couple points, or we're just going to get completely smashed and blown out, and it's going to be just a devastation at FedEx once again. And unfortunately, I'm going towards the second option. I think that they might keep it close in the beginning, or they might just come out and just get the doors blown off. But I do think it's a 2-score game they beat us by. I'll go Philly 28, Washington 14 or 17, somewhere around there.
You know how I know Washington's going to win this weekend? And the reason why I know this is because, the losses that they have against the Bears and the Giants, that's what everyone always says. Well, that's how bad they are. They lost to the 2 of the worst teams in the NFL. This would be the game that they win against the Philadelphia Eagles. And people say, well, you always win those divisional type of games. You always get it over on somebody. This is the NFL type thing. It's like that argument is what Washington fans deal with. It only makes sense if we win this game, Andy. Just for me personally, do
you know what though? It's something that if you look, was it last couple? I come up on my Facebook memory. I don't know where my phone is. We were like 23-3 up over the Cowboys a couple of seasons ago, and this is what we can see. This is the problem that frustrates me to hell about this team. We can do it. I will not be completely shocked if come Sunday when I can't afford. I'm working on Sunday, so I won't be able to see all the game. It would not shock me if I looked at my phone and we're 23-3 up at halftime, and we've absolutely come out. And Terry's had a game, and Dotson's had a game, because every now and again, this is what this team does, and then they just drag you back in as a fan base, and you go, they can do it. It's there. We can do it. It comes back to that word consistency.
Yes.
We can't do it consistently. And if you want to be a good football team in the NFL, and especially in the NFC East, if you were consistent in the NFC East, we'd be in the playoffs every year.
To your point, also,
you're right.
The most Washington outcome will be that they got Montez Sweat, like trade offers out there, Chase Young rumors, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
They
win this game. They win this game on Sunday. They win 2 or 3 in a row. Next thing you know, like you said, they drag the fan base back in like, there's hope. We're the 7th seed. There's a shot. And then they do what they always do is they lose on the back end. They mess it up. Chase walks, or one of those 2 walk this offseason. We don't get the compensation that we would have came. It's going to come out later on that they were offering a 2nd-round pick for Montez Sweat or something like that. And then we only get the compensation, the 3rd-round comp pick. So that's the most Washington outcome. So to your point, it would not surprise me.
And remember, you only get a 3rd-round comp pick if your player leaves, signs somewhere else inside the frame of it being a top 5 salary at that position that they play at. That's the only time you get a 3rd rounder.
Well, then we might not even get the comp pick. So there you go. That'd be even more of a Washington outcome.
Thank you. That's what that's what my argument
about. That would be the most Washington thing ever.
That's been my argument this entire time about those 2, is that we keep saying that franchise tag and all that. I'm like, are we sure that they're going to garner that sort of contract given the circumstances permitting around? Do you know what I'm saying?
I forgot about the whole top 5 pick position thing. So yes, you're right.
How many teams are looking at them now, though?
The more Washington outcome is exactly what you just said. You don't even get the comp pick for him, and he walks anyway and signs a long-term deal.
Yeah. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. Andy, this episode is called Brotherly Love for a reason, brother, and I can't thank you enough for joining us and being able to talk with us. I'm glad that you're in a better mood now. I know it was a rough Monday and Sunday evening, but like they say, the night is always darkest before dawn. But apparently,
do it all again next week, right?
But apparently, we live down in Antarctica where it's dark for 30 years. Apparently, you know what I'm saying, Andy? I love you, brother. I have my spiel for you. I'd love to say everything I can about you and everything that you've done up until this point, but you just keep kicking ass, keep representing us well, brother, and I'll hopefully be able to see you soon when you come back over for the Dallas game.
Yeah, man. Hopefully, we'll be back for the Dallas game. Hopefully, it'll be meaningful. But like I say, man, you guys are the goats for a reason. It might be midnight over here, but if I'm staying up to midnight, it's only for you boys. So keep doing what you're doing, lads. You're killing it.
That's why Harris and Company, they know the UK boys are a special breed. All right, everybody, that's gonna wrap us up for this episode. We'll see you guys on Monday. Have a great, safe weekend. Hopefully, we get a dub this weekend, 24-20. Jamison Crowder is the MVP. We'll see you on Monday, everybody. Washington football. Woo!
Peace.
What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.